Hey, it's Chris from Toolsport Garage. Today I'm going to add racks to the side of my Rally 300 because if you're doing any long distance travel, it's super nice to have proper racks to hang saddlebags on. And I'm going to be using Outback Motortek racks, which I've used in the past. They're mild steel. You can weld them, bend them back if they get damaged. Really like the product. So I'm going to add it to my 300 Rally. So stick around for that. I feel like the right setup to really maximize your fun factor and your ADV trips on the 300 Rally is to have a top box and have some side racks with some soft luggage. I think that's the right setup for the 300. I think hard bags would be the wrong way to go. And I really don't like just throwing something over the back. Hey, but before we get started, let me just take a moment. As you can see right here, this is the Axp rack for the back. It is one of the largest racks that I've been able to find. It's like 13, 14 inches long, like at the longest points, and it's about like 15.5 inches wide. The important thing is, and if you see my other video, I've got a really simple DIY solution for top box. This top box, because of the size of it and because the rack is so nice and generous, it still leaves me with spots that I can hook bungee cords, front, sides, and back. So love the size of this rack. So bear in mind, that's the rack that you're looking at. So now let's go ahead and just add our side racks and finish out our build. All right, before I go ahead and mount this up, I'm gonna need to take foot pegs off. So we're gonna just take the cotter pin out and then the main pivot pin, and we're gonna replace that with a bolt that's gonna hold the bottom of the frame in place. So straighten out the cotter pin. You can also snap off the cotter pin with side cutters, which is less hassle because I'm not gonna reuse that pin. So now I can take the pivot pin out of the way. Haha, only issue is the pin is too long and it's bumping into the battery box that's in behind here. Kind of thought that might be an issue. There needs to be enough room up under here for us to get the pin out. Okay, in order to get a bit better look at this foot peg, see what I need to do to get it off, I'm gonna take this piece of bodywork off, 5mm Allen head. Let's try taking the battery out of its housing. I'm thinking of taking a notch out of the bottom of the box that holds the battery, just enough to move that pin out of there so I don't have to remove this whole box. But first I'm going to try and see if I can bend this enough to squeeze it past. So we'll see what we can do. I mean, I'd have to take a decent sized chunk out of that, but wouldn't be the end of the world because structurally this box would not be affected if I took a little bit of a notch out of there. And that's probably going to be the easiest thing. If I was to use a set of tin snips, I could probably take a notch out. That would allow it to just squeak past. There you have it. I mean, if you look at that, before this can come out, you really have to have the pin way into the battery box. So not on the instructions anywhere, but there you have it. That's my fix for it, is just tin snips and a little tiny notch. The integrity of the box is still super solid and you've got metal that wraps around it, so I would not worry about that. And this, instead of this pin, we're gonna put a bolt here and that's gonna hold the bottom of the rack. Now, part of what you can do as part of this installation is to remove the toolbox, in which case I'll be able to put a gas tank, a Rotopax gas tank behind the rack. This is probably the best time to go ahead and do that. But before I do that, I'm gonna put the battery back in place and secure these two pieces of bodywork. And removing the batteries become clear. This is a heavy battery. Well worth investigating the cost of a lithium battery because they're a heck of a lot lighter. So with this side cover off, now I can get to the two screws that hold the toolbox in place. Okay, so just remove that one screw, and I'll take the other one as well right in here. Additionally, there's one screw under the fender, under here. You can see there's our last little Phillips screw. So there's 4 Phillips, 2 in the box, 1 back here, and the other one that was underneath. So now I'm going to close this back up again, get the side cover on, put the seat back in place, and we can operate with all of those items back where they were. Okay, so now let's take the right side foot peg off. That's it. This pin is just going to go up underneath the bodywork. If I'm not being lazy, I can just pull the bodywork off, but as you can see, you can wiggle that up out of the way. Okay guys, to mount up my racks, I'm going to be using the fasteners in this kit. This is what it came with. These are the spacers. It's designed that if you have nothing else on the bike, those are the spacers you're going to need. Now I have the Axp Rear Rack. It's made of quite thick material. It has spacers of its own, so we're basically going to want to make sure the rack ends up in the same place. As you can see, this looks to be pretty much dead on. One thing to be sure you don't lose in the process of assembly and disassembly is, so this washer actually has a shoulder. The rear fender is holding on in 4 spots with this. So looking at the fasteners they've included, I've got some very short fasteners. These are gonna secure the cross brace. I've got 2 slightly shorter ones and 4 long ones. The 4 long ones are gonna hold the rear part of the rack. And the 2 slightly shorter ones, these are gonna be where the foot pegs are. Also of note, before we get too far, this is an extra piece. This is the X frame. You can buy the side racks with this pre-installed, and I believe it's welded in place. Or you can buy this as an afterthought, which I did because I only want it on one side, which is the non-exhaust side of the bike. And then I'm going to be able to use the Motortek to have about 1 gallon of gas as my reserve. Let's go over to the bike and get all this fastened up. Okay, so for the rest of this, I think I'm going to be able to rely on a T30 Torx bit for the bolts and a 13 millimeter open end wrench for the nut that I'm going to need to put in here. Same head on the bolts that are going to hold the back of the rack in place. So that T30 is pretty much all you're going to need for the back 4 pieces there. And for these 2, we'll just go ahead with the first piece. I'll be putting this bolt in where the foot peg used to be. So a smaller black washer underneath, bigger silver washer on top, and then I'm going to slide the self-locking or nylock nut, and then I'm going to tighten this loosely, let's say. I'm not going to tighten it all the way. So there's lots of room for me to get the bottom of the rack just notched into place here while I fasten everything and tighten everything down. So that rack's going to hook in there, and then I'm just going to locate it back here. It's worth noting, so I told you there's a shoulder washer. Just be careful, the one in the front is going to be a deeper one because it's got to go through basically a couple layers of plastic before it reaches where it seats. So we're going to put those in first. Okay, so my strategy is going to be for this top rack, get my spacers and my bolts on just the top rack for the moment. I'm going to roll this over. Then my thought is to remove 1 or 2 bolts as I go along, and only one of these shoulder washer pieces fell out, which is the one in the back here. So I've got all of that where I can get it finger tight on one side. So I'm just going to get the left side just spun in finger tight, just very loosely. Then the right side, I'm going to pull these out now that everything's kind of assembled, and try and do 1 bolt at a time if I can. Fingers crossed. And keeps things loose in all 3 spots until you get everything kind of wiggled into place. Just making sure nothing's cross-threaded and it spins smoothly. So before I cinch them more than just hand tight, I'm gonna do the other side now too. And then once I've got everything in place, I'm gonna pull these out one at a time and lock tight and then put it back in. So we'll do the same again on the other side. So it feels like the rack's actually a little too far forward at the top, which means the angle at the bottom here might be a little too steep. This is squeezed in a little bit. So I'm actually gonna drop it on the ground. I'm gonna put a foot on one side and a foot on the other side and just bounce, use my body weight to bounce up and down a little bit. Try and flatten this out just a little. I'm about, the hole's back here, this is up here. I'm maybe like a 1/4 of an inch off. I don't wanna fight it while I'm installing it. I don't wanna go too far, make it too flat. But I think that's probably gonna be good enough. That looks better. Happy with that. I mean, I could hardly feel it move. In fact, I didn't feel it move. I mean, I just bounced on it a few times just because it's way easier to manipulate the steel when it's off the bike. Now let's get the cross brace on here. I suppose there's two ways to do this. You can have it hanging down, which doesn't look right, or you can have it where it tilts up, and that looks a lot better. It's tucked in underneath the license plate. So for this, it's the little bolt with a black washer on the outside so it looks neat. We're gonna go bigger silver washer on the inside and the nylock nut. And it'll be 8mm head on the outside, 10mm on the inside. All right, then I'm gonna tighten the top bolts, snug them up a little, and then we'll snug up the bottom. The last piece of the puzzle is going to be to add the X frame. I'm gonna leave this X frame on the outside, and I'm gonna use these aluminum brackets which screw in from the other side, and that'll just hold it on. It's basically just a wedge, and I'm just gonna screw those two pieces together. Gonna put a little Loctite on these fasteners. Little Loctite on the last one, and these are 4mm Allen key heads. So you have some latitude as exactly where you line this up. I think it's gonna look better if it's perfectly centered. Don't wanna over tighten it, so I just use my 4mm T-handle Allen key. All right, that's rock solid, and I think the red looks great. Hey guys, so that's it for the install. I've got top racks, side racks. I can load this puppy up. I'm gonna actually put a top box on top of here. You can see my DIY under 30 bucks top box, which I'm gonna add to the Axp top rack here. But I'm also gonna run some soft luggage, and I'm looking at a couple of under $200 solutions for soft luggage. But I like the fact of having big racks that provide some stability to that soft luggage, because I do like to hit some very technical off-road sections, and I don't want to have to worry about what's behind me. Hopefully this install was helpful for you. We ran into a couple of things we had to tweak, nothing major. If it was, smash the like as always, and subscribe to follow along, because there's still a bunch more things that I want to do with the 300 Rally, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. So thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.